everybody, so Cobra Kai Season 6 Part 2 finally is upon us on Netflix right now, which means I am now able to delve into some of the more spoilery aspects of Part 2, breaking down some stuff in the season, while also speculating on some potential theories on where maybe we can go for a Part 3, the final part that's coming out next year, and potentially some other plot threads and theories that could be linked to the upcoming Karate Kids Legends that also comes out next year. Finally, the Sekai Taikai tournament is underway, and it's an immense amount of fun. To me, at least, it completely lived up to all of the hype building up to it, and we already had that high tension going in from Part 1 due to everyone being hurt by Tori deciding to rejoin Cobra Kai. And then to make matters worse, to add on top of all the different drama going on, she goes and decides to break up with Robbie, or at least according to her, they go on a break. Heartbreak in general is kind of a running theme all throughout Part 2, between Robbie and Tori breaking up. Chozen returns to help out in the Sekai Taikai after things with Kamiko didn't really go that well. At least in Chozen's case, he does have a little bit of a rebound, one that I certainly wasn't expecting. Chozen ends up striking up a little bit of a brief romance with Sensei Dai-un from Cobra Kai, while they're both teaming up to try and find all of their students in Barcelona. I don't know if necessarily this is going to end up being a long-term relationship type of thing, but I totally ship them. Unfortunately, in the very first challenge of the Sekai Taikai, and it's kind of a running theme all throughout these challenges, Miyagi-Do does struggle a whole lot to maintain. Most often in these different challenges, whether it be the Captain's War or the other one, they're just completely outmatched as hard as they try. One of the major reasons they're able to even stay in the tournament for a long time is due to Miguel. Several of these different challenges, Miguel kind of just puts the entire team on his back, usually having to fight multiple people at once, something that he does several times throughout the Sekai Taikai tournament. It's not helped out at all by Robbie completely losing focus after Tori dumped him. It becomes so frustrating how many challenges Robbie loses just because he's just staring off into space, looking at Tori, and Tori does the exact same thing. Speaking of Cobra Kai, though they fare a little bit better in certain challenges, they get completely steamrolled by the Iron Dragons. We've seen a lot of different formidable foes for these characters throughout the series, but Iron Dragons probably is the most formidable of them all. Especially Axel, who's just completely massive. Then there's Zara, who's incredibly powerful, dominating every single woman in the competition, including, to no surprise, Tori. It does make complete sense why Zara is so great at martial arts, because her actress is a multi-time award-winning martial artist herself in real life. Zara is an interesting antagonist for Tori. She's just the complete opposite of Tori in every single way. Confident, bubbly, and to make matters worse and enhance their rivalry, she goes and hooks up with Robbie. To be fair, they are on a break during all of this, so Robbie wasn't cheating in any way, but I certainly wasn't expecting them to have such levels of hooking up in this between them and then Chozen and Kim Daeun. Of course, continuing on from Part 1, we continue Daniel's journey to attempt to uncover more about Mr. Miyagi's past. Now that we know going in, back in the day, he did compete in the Sekai Taikai. We even get a brief lead on a Master Serrano who apparently used to know Mr. Miyagi, and they set up a whole meeting for Daniel to go and meet him. It is a tad head-scratching that Daniel decides to do all of this stuff alone in a sketchy part of town. Lo and behold, he ends up getting knocked out and thrown in a cage for his trouble, having to fight his way out. Which was a pretty cool fight between him and a mysterious long-haired man with a Cobra Kai tattoo, which caused a bit of drama. Well, it was a disappointment that the Master Serrano lead to Mr. Miyagi's past inevitably didn't end up leading anywhere. I'm slowly more and more buying into the fact that it's going to all tie into Karate Kid Legends, the upcoming film that comes out next year. There must be some reason why Daniel not only goes to China, but decides to help Mr. Han trade a whole new student. There's even some level of chance possibly that Mr. Han has some connection to Mr. Miyagi. I think that's probably going to be part of how they end up bonding in Karate Kid Legends. Who knows necessarily how Mr. Han and Mr. Miyagi are going to have some level of connection. I mean, the easy way out, I guess you could say probably, is maybe that Mr. Han was in the Sekai Taikai at some point, and that's how they crossed paths. Because Mr. Miyagi's past is so mysterious, there's probably a whole lot of other ways they could explain it. By the way, if you recognize the long-haired man that fights Daniel that has the Cobra Kai tattoo, it kind of does spoiler reveal later on if you know who he is, because you're supposed to believe that all of this stuff with Daniel getting thrown into a cage and orchestrating this plan was supposed to be Kreese's doing. Something I've always really appreciated about Cobra Kai is just how much this show loves the lore of the Karate Kid franchise, finding many different ways to bring in various different legacy characters. Almost everyone to this point has pretty much been introduced in some shape or form other than a couple handful. I'm still waiting to this day for Hilary Swank to show up in this show, and we only have one more part after this, and she's still not shown up. This is kind of a deep cut, but it fits in line with what we've seen so far to this point, as the man that fought Daniel is actually Dennis, one of Terry Silver's crew of henchmen from The Karate Kid Part 3. He's even still played by the same actor, William Christopher Ford. You can imagine leads to the reveal later on that Daniel, Chosen, Kreese, and Kim Daeun realize that Terry Silver not only is back getting all of his charges dropped, because between this and Kreese also getting his charges dropped, that's why he's able to teach in the Sekai Taikai. I don't know what's going on with the justice system in the Cobra Kai universe, but clearly it's just downright terrible. But Terry also is the one behind the Iron Dragons, pulling the strings, tracking down Sensei Wolf to finance them in exchange that they embarrassed Cobra Kai at this tournament for revenge. If you're a big MMA fan, if you watch closely at the man getting his face pummeled in by Wolf in the cage, it's actually longtime well-known UFC fighter Donald Cowboy Cerrone. No pun intended, but if there's any silver lining to Terry Silver coming back and the Master Serrano angle being a ploy, basically, he does decide to help Daniel out in researching Mr. Miyagi anyways, revealing that back in the day, Mr. Miyagi actually killed somebody in the Sekai Taikai tournament. They don't clarify, they never said if it was an accident that he killed the guy in the Sekai Taikai, or he just completely went Mortal Kombat and actually just straight up brutally murdered this dude. Still, nevertheless, it's a surprise reveal, recontextualizing Mr. Miyagi for us as the audience, but also Daniel having to grapple with everything that he's believed about Mr. Miyagi to this point, and struggling on dealing with why Mr. Miyagi kept all of this stuff with him. And that's besides the whole weird, creepy dream sequence we have between Daniel fighting a young Mr. Miyagi, and then for a brief 2 or 3 seconds it turns into a creepy CGI-faced Pat Morita. I really don't know why they decided to even do that. Considering the fact that Devin cheated to get to the Sekai Taikai tournament, I wasn't expecting it to just be resolved so easily. I mean, to be fair, she does get her ass kicked for the majority of the tournament before she does eventually just give up, admitting that she cheated, and then Kenny gets to come in and replace her. That whole storyline as well is pretty wild, because Kenny flies all the way to Barcelona to replace Miguel and not Devin. Then Miguel comes back to Barcelona, re-enters the tournament, so instead of just shipping Kenny all the way back home, they have him take Devin's spot. So Devin just gets to sit there and be moral support, I guess, for the rest of the tournament, because she's not fighting in it. Honestly, with how amazing Miguel was for the majority of the Sekai Taikai tournament, for that brief moment where it seemed like he was just going to take himself out, fly back home because of his mom being sick in the hospital, in that moment I felt like the Miyagi-Do was just completely over and done with, because for the most part throughout these challenges, he is the single-handedly one person that's keeping them in this fight. The Sekai Taikai tournament rules-wise just seems like a complete mess with the way you can just have people sub in and sub out. It never feels like the rules make much sense, and I'm still confused by the end. All this reflection that Miyagi-Do has going into the last part, the final battle between them and Cobra Kai, low-key did kind of have me in my feelings, discussing that this potentially could be the last time they ever fight together. All around, this quote-unquote final matchup between Cobra Kai and Miyagi-Do was so thrilling. It was tough to root for one team more than the other, because I like people on both sides. I still feel like it ended perfectly, though, with a fight between Robbie and Quan, who in my opinion had the best rivalry of all of Part 2. With all the different mind games that they play with one another, Quan makes him believe that he's with Tori now after they broke up, and they consistently try to one-up each other with various different competitions. All around, just such an incredible fight, and I was really happy that Robbie ended up winning. Unfortunately, this entire final battle, if you will, ended up being such a moot point, and it is frustrating because I love this show so much, but I really wish they would just commit to some of this stuff and not find loopholes to keep everybody together. Because even though Cobra Kai ends up being eliminated by Miyagi-Do, there's this surprise reveal that the Russian team in the Sekai Taikai tournament tested positive for PEDs, so because of that, Cobra Kai gets to come back into the tournament and replace them since they were the next team, the next runner-up. This finale, though, probably the most wild finale of all of Cobra Kai to this point. I was really nervous for Robbie to go in there and try and fight Axel. My concerns were warranted because it's a good fight for a little bit there. Robbie goes in that ring and gets completely brutalized by Axel. The fight never ends up having a definitive conclusion, though, so we can't really say if anyone was going to win or lose, because the disqualified Russian coach has to go and knock out the guy in charge, so everybody starts fighting. By the way, I didn't mention it yet, but I thought it was really cool that the female Russian coach was Britt Baker, the AEW wrestler. If you're a big wrestling fan, you probably know exactly who Dr. Britt Baker is. This final brawl between literally like everybody in this show, it's wild. It's the most intense, insane thing I've seen in Cobra Kai. Pretty much every single matchup you could ever want in the show is in this battle between all the different kids. Daeun and Chosen team up and fight together, Wolf versus Johnny. And there's even Terry Silver versus Kreese in there. And Johnny being being the great man that he is, decides to help Kreese after all. You can tell that Johnny still deep down likes and cares about Kreese. I gotta say though, Kreese is pretty hilarious in part 2 because he spends so much time once he realizes that Kreese is back just pondering on when he's gonna be able to stab him with the knife he's been carrying.
Come over here. I'm going to fucking stab you.
What? No. We're not coming over there.
Never ends up using the knife though, but it does unfortunately get used in the long run. Like, I knew that Quan was pretty unhinged as a character at times. Deciding to grab Kreese's blade off the ground felt a bit too crazy for him to do during the commotion, and unfortunately that led to his lethal downfall, considering we conclude part 2 with the realization that he fell on Kreese's knife after Axel kicked him, and he dies. We conclude this entire part 2 with Quan dying, and everybody internationally is watching this live, so they watched him die on screen and they cut the camera. I am really disappointed that Quan died because I thought he was such an interesting villainous character that had so much potential. Who knows if we're going to see more of the Sekai Taikai tournament after this. I have to imagine we're going to see the tournament continue in some regard. You have to finish this thing up, right? Otherwise it's all kind of pointless. The mood going forward is definitely going to completely shift, and then I have to wonder as well, they're going to probably have to replace Quan in some regard because he was the captain after all, or at the very least have someone else step in and be the captain, but you need another roster spot for it, so who knows. For the love of God though, if you're gonna bring somebody back in to fill the roster spot in Cobra Kai, please don't let it be Stingray. My completely batshit insane hope in all this as far as replacements go, I kind of hope it's gonna end up being Master Kim, just because I think that would be downright hilarious if Master Kim got to enter the tournament even though he's like 100+ years old. But yeah, let me know down below though, once you've checked out season 6 part 2 of Cobra Kai, what'd you think of the season? Share all your thoughts down below. How'd you feel about all the different reveals, including the death of Quan? And if you have any theories where you think we're going to go at the 3rd and final part of the 6th season, I'd love to know those down below as well. Thank you guys, as always, checking out the videos. I always do appreciate it. Make sure to like on the video and also subscribe to the channel to update reviews, reactions, unboxings, and more. But the next time, I'll see you guys later.